Welcome back to the Astrology Report, this time for June 19th through June 25th of 2023. My name is Cam White. Thank you guys so much for being here. As you can see, I'm in my new place. The studio still has some cleaning up to do. I'm not fully moved in yet, but I'm really enjoying this place so far. So thank you guys for all of your wishes and blessings. I am hoping for the best for this place, and it's a lot better than my last place. Before we begin, I have a major announcement, actually. If you go to my website right now, you can now purchase a transit calendar for your phone. So AstroGold has now allowed me the ability to get your guys' birth information, pull up your birth chart. And if you've ever wanted notifications for when a major transit is happening to you, I can now provide that for you. As you can see, I have my little calendar right here, and these little orange notifications are for when a transit's happening to my birth chart. So, for example, today I have Mercury is going to be making a sextile to my Saturn. I can click on this, and it's going to let me know the interpretation. This is not my interpretation of this. This is AstroGold's. However, if you don't want to pull up an app, or if you're trying to learn astrology and you're trying to understand how the transits are affecting you better, this is a great tool to use. It's right on your iCloud calendar, or if you're like on Android and you use Google Calendar, you can also put it to your Google Calendar. It's super easy to install, but you'll get notifications of when a transit is going to be hitting your natal placements. As well, if you are into secondary progress charts, there's an option for you to get notifications for when when one of your secondary progressed planets is hitting one of your natal charts. It's a really awesome tool. I'm really excited about it. I've been wanting something like this for a long time, and now I have the ability to do it, and I want to be able to give that to you guys. So if you go on my website for $20, I can send you the whole year, this whole next year. So that means the next 12 months of transits to your phone. So go ahead and check that out. That's something that you're interested in. Make the purchase. It helps out my channel. It's going to support me a lot here. And yeah, that's it. So let's go ahead and get into the astrology. So we're starting Monday off on the 19th with just the moon being in Cancer, really just making a sextile to Uranus. It's actually really not doing too much. It doesn't make the sextile to Uranus till later in the afternoon. And we're coming off of this new moon in Gemini, right? So now the moon is gaining in light. We're building up to stuff. We're increasing in our energy. And as the moon's in Cancer, I usually like to say the same thing every single time, just so it's a little bit more clear. But as the moon's in Cancer, we're feeling things. We're very sensitive to our emotions, but we're really focused on nurturing, protecting, feeling nourished. And so as the moon's in Cancer, making a sextile to Uranus, Uranus is about innovation, liberation, instability at times, but I believe when it's a sextile, it's kind of like I just feel whimsically, I feel a whimsical energy to try something new that maybe I'm more open-minded to trying now than maybe I was in a previous time. So I think on Monday, there's like this energy of trying something new, not with this huge pressure to do it, but trying something different or kind of shaking things up a little bit that is going to make you feel more nurtured, more protected, more secure. So I really like that. But we have two major transits happening on Monday, which is going to be Jupiter making a sextile to Saturn. This is kind of like something that I can go really, really deep into. But what you guys have to understand is Jupiter and Saturn aspects are big, big, big deals. We just came off of a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction that happened in very late 2020. That was in Aquarius. That then set off the next 200 years of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions happening in the air sign. So this is a triplicity shift is what this is called in astrology. And it's kind of like a new era of, time, essentially. Like for the past 200 years, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions have been happening in earth signs. We've had the Industrial Revolution, capitalism, communism, everything about like the material and how we organize it. Now we're going into the air triplicity, which is all about ideas and thoughts and society and relationships and how we communicate with people. So this is a 200-year shift. And this is why like the Pluto in Aquarius is so important. Like it's not just Pluto in Aquarius, it's Pluto going into the zodiac sign that just had a triplicity shift. So even though technically we're not in the age of Aquarius, like this is kind of like greasing us up for the age of Aquarius. It's like everything that happens now is what sets that precedent. But Jupiter in Taurus is now making a sextile to Saturn in Pisces. So as Jupiter, again, the planet of hope, abundance, faith, good fortune, it's sextiling Saturn. Saturn's going to be about limitations, responsibility, duty, obligations, maturity. You could say Saturn is like a heavy weight, but as Saturn's in Pisces, which is a Jupiter-ruled sign, like where we have to apply structure and where we have to be more mature and more serious is in flux, right? It changes every day. Like, again, I like to say Pisces is the truest water sign. Water can be a solid, a liquid, or a gas. And so depending on its environment, right? So Saturn, it's like, sometimes you have to contain water, sometimes you have to contain ice, sometimes you have to contain like a gaseous, vapor. But as Jupiter makes this sextile to Saturn, there's this, again, it's Jupiter applying to Saturn. So what you could look at that as is like what Jupiter is doing is enriching the Saturn experience. So Jupiter being in Taurus now, where we are focused on like slow and steady wins the race, focused on sensuality, focused on values, focused on material goods, focused on creating stability and security and just consistency. That is helping us grow into like the Saturn and Pisces area where we're having to make some big changes. We're having to be like where we have to be more disciplined, where we have to be more responsible. Again, look at where Pisces is at in your chart, and that's going to give you a lot more insight as to what this actually means for you specifically. But as Saturn's in Pisces, we have to be more, responsible with our beliefs, with our faith, with it's not necessarily being so skeptical, but just like I talked a lot about my Saturn and Pisces video about like we actually have to apply our faith now, and we're going to be tested with our faith, and we're going to be tested with our beliefs. And with Saturn being in the same sign as Neptune, things that we might have thought were real aren't going to be. And I think as Jupiter sextile Saturn, there's kind of this, hey, if you just take your time and you be patient and you know exactly what it is that you want and you aren't overwhelmed with all of the other possibilities and options, you can get the growth that you want. You can get the abundance that you want. And the Jupiter Saturn sextile will make a big difference if you have like Jupiter or Saturn activated as like a Time Lord. But it's really just kind of talking about the overall energy of like this time period of life. So like 2023 is that Jupiter Saturn sextile. Like, hey, our beliefs are somewhat in alignment with like our duties and our responsibilities. When we had the conjunction, it was like we had a whole new start to what exactly it is that we have to achieve, what exactly it is that we believe. Like Jupiter Saturn conjunctions are like in ancient astrology, it's like a new king has arisen. Or an old kingdom has fallen, right? So it's a really big new start. And as Jupiter sextile Saturn, it's like the growth of that new world. It's the growth of that new kingdom. And now I want you to think about where you were at the end of 2020, going into the beginning of 2021. It's a very, very weird time. And now that we are here where we're at now, look at how much has changed. Look at how much you've grown into. Look at how much you've taken on and how, again, I think just the best realization is how much you've changed. And this indicates a time of stability. This indicates a time of like getting the fruits of your labor, if that makes sense. So it's kind of it's a big deal on like the overall like arching astrology stuff. It's just not as big of a deal for like, it's just a Monday thing. It's like, it's much more of like a June of this month thing, but it's also much more of a 2023 overall transit. But the next big thing that we have going on Monday, we have a lot of things going on here on Monday, is Venus is going to enter shadow. Now, we could talk about Venus possibly entering shadow on Sunday, yesterday, or Sunday, the day that you're watching this. But Venus really enters shadow on Monday because it enters shadow really, really late Sunday night. Whatever's going on Monday, we're going to come back to around September 4th of this year. Venus is going to hit the degree that she'll come back on. And typically what that represents is some sort of event is going to be happening on this day that we will be returning to. Well, what does that event look like? This is Venus stuff. So we're talking about love, romance, sex, beauty. We're talking about indulgence and fun and creativity and enjoyment. Venus is very sticky too. So it's very like, what exactly like are you like stuck to? What exactly do you want to be like like Venus is very sweet and sugary. And think of like sugar is like that high of like, oh, this tastes so good and this is so sweet. And it's Venus in Leo. So it's about being witnessed. It's about being seen. It's about being like, not just ambitious, but like wanting to be glorified. And again, you're going to have to look at what house Leo rules in your chart to understand how it really is going to affect you in your life. But as Venus enters shadow, there's going to be an event here, whether that is you get approached in some way or you see yourself in a new light that you go, this is where I need to change. I've talked a lot about Venus retrograde in Leo is like changing the way the world sees us, because right now Venus is evening star. So that means if you go outside after sunset, you will see Venus very, very brightly in the western horizon. By the time we get to September 4th, when Venus stations direct, Venus will be morning star. And the difference between an evening star Venus and a morning star Venus is evening star Venus is like being witnessed and being seen in a certain light, and whether you like it or not. And as Venus goes retrograde and goes in between the sun and the earth and goes through her Kazemi and, shine and, is reborn again on the eastern horizon, this is like being seen in a new way. And the analogy I've been using is it's like Miley Cyrus. If you guys aren't familiar with Miley Cyrus, she's like this Disney star, goody goody two shoes kind of thing. And she didn't like her Disney reputation. So what did she do? She started doing rap. I think it was the VMAs, or I forgot what it was, but it was a really big deal in like 2016, 2017 that like she just like totally changed her look. Everyone thought it was really trashy. But now she's like this country singer and she's like married with a kid and she's like super happy. I use that analogy for the Venus retrograde in Leos because like the reason she did all of that was because she wanted to get away from her Disney reputation and all of like the Disney contracts and how they kind of held her down. And she wanted to do her own thing. And I look at that as such a great example of like Venus retrograde in Leo. Now, I don't even know if Miley Cyrus has Venus in Leo. I don't know what her placements are, but it's like you're being seen one way. You're like, and it's Venus in Leo. Like we are enjoying being seen, but is this the attention that we want? Is this the way that we want to be seen? And over these next few months, we're going to be transforming the way that we're seen. And as Venus becomes morning star, this is my new, you could say identity, but another way to look at it is like, if you've had the same haircut forever and you're being like, I don't like this haircut. Going over these next few months as Venus retrogrades, it's like, then as Venus stations direct, it's like you get a mullet or something, or you dye your hair blue or something like that. It's just a change of how we're being seen. And it's still Venus and Leo. Like we want the attention, we want the spotlight. We just don't like this attention. We just don't like this spotlight. And so we want to change the lighting a little bit. We want to change the pizzazz a little bit. So on Monday is when this is going to kind of click. Monday is whatever's going on that day, we're going to be coming back to in a few months. And so I'd really pay attention to like, are you being seen the way that you want? Are you being witnessed the way that you want? Are you garnering the attention that you like? Or is it time to maybe switch some things up to where you're getting a different form of attention? And attention is really important. In society nowadays, it's like, oh, everyone's attention hungry and because everyone's got a phone. And it's like we need to be seen. Like when we're just hidden all of the time, like it's so bad for our own like personalities. And maybe I'm just a Leo where like I have a much healthier relationship to being on the stage and being seen, but like having some sort of attention is like good for us. Like if everyone passes us by, like that's going to be very negative for our emotions and our own psyche. So anyway, let's move forward. Oh my God, my hair. All right, whatever. So then we get into Tuesday, and the moon is going to be at the end degrees of Cancer, making a trine to Neptune, and then it will go opposite Pluto, and then it's going to enter Leo. So the moon in Cancer, trining Neptune and Pisces. We're feeling nostalgic. We're feeling romantic about, the past or our situation. And I think that's all fine. Just try not to get too lost in the sauce. But then the moon is going to go opposite Pluto. And I almost didn't write this down as a transit I wanted to talk about because it's like, it's just such old news. Like Pluto's now back in Capricorn. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, Pluto's back in Capricorn. Lately, I've been debating on not the emphasis of Pluto, but like Pluto ingressing into new signs is going to be a big deal. But like the moon just going opposite Pluto, is this really something so like something to talk about? And of course, me, other astrologers, we're all going to have different opinions. You guys are going to have different opinions. So again, let me know what your thoughts are below. Like, I think the way it could look is the moon's in Cancer. We need to be nourished. We need to be protected. But the moon's going opposite Pluto in Capricorn. You could talk about like I just saw, a reel about how like New York legislators are trying to increase rent by like 7%. It's like, I don't even know how I can't comprehend how people pay rent in New York now. How are they going to afford a 7% increase? And that's how I kind of look at like the moon in Cancer opposite Pluto and Capricorn. It's like, it's hard to protect you. It's hard to take care of the things that you need to when the system right now, like literally doesn't work for everybody. And that doesn't matter if you're like a hardcore capitalist right-wing person, or of course, if like you're a liberal or a leftist or a Marxist Leninist, like the system doesn't really work right now for really anybody. And we'll all have different opinions about what the solutions are or what the problems are, but we're all pretty much in consensus that this sucks at the moment. And because Pluto is all about, again, corruption, transformation, like evil stuff. And it's in the sign of like governments and corporations. And so that's kind of like a more meta take on it. I think a more personal take is that moon's in Cancer opposite Pluto. And there's this like level of fear. Like Moon in Cancer opposite Pluto. It's like, I need to take care of myself, and I'm afraid to make this single confrontation with Pluto. Like sometimes you have to go to your landlord and be like, hey, like the property management at this place is it's so Pluto and Aquarius. It's like this venture capital tech dystopian bullshit. And like I'm already fighting with the property management because it's horrible. But like sometimes you have to confront them, and sometimes that makes a win. So anyway, I'm saying all this to say I think that moon opposite Pluto, you're going to be engaging in some fear, you're going to be engaging in confronting that fear. But then as the moon goes into Leo, like we're feeling better about it. Like we handled that. The moon is now gaining light and it's in Leo. Mars is in Leo, Venus is in Leo, the moon's in Leo. We're going to be feeling pretty hot, pretty sexy as we go into the next few days with the moon in Leo. So then we get into Wednesday, and the moon is then going to make a square to Jupiter, and then it's going to conjoin Venus. What I like about the moon squaring Jupiter is as the moon's in Leo, and we're wanting to feel prideful, we're wanting to be seen, we're wanting to be glorified. Our emotions are very much attached to our identity, to our ego, to our willpower. But it's squaring Jupiter, where you might want to do something now just to garner the attention, but it's like the slow and steady wins the race. I can relate this a lot to my life right now. Like I've been talking to you guys so much about the music stuff, and like I've got a song ready that like I can drop right now, but I know that it doesn't work that way, and I want to get a few things in the catalog first so I can then like put the content out at a consistent pace. And so like there's a part of me that's like I just want to do it now because like I want to share my music. Like I've been talking about it for so long, and it's something that I'm so proud of, and I've worked so fucking hard to do, and I just can't do it yet. And I think as the moon squares Jupiter, there's this level of like, hey, while you might want to be seen right now, you have to trust the process. You have to be patient with it. It's the same thing as like when you plant a garden. You might, if you've never, been a gardener or a farmer before, you might want to throw some seeds in the ground and just expect shit to pop right back up. It takes some time. It's going to take time for things to grow, and it's the good things that take time. So as the moon squares Jupiter, it's then going to conjoin Venus. And this is a great day. The moon is going to be, pretty much in between two benefics. So as the moon's separating from Jupiter, it's going to be applying to Venus. And this is the moon conjoining Venus again of like, hey, you are going to be seen. You are going to be witnessed. Like the moon conjoining Venus and Leo is like, so like, again, I can't think of any good Venus and Leo like people examples right now, but it just reminds me of like I don't know why, but like Whitney Houston is what it reminds me of. And maybe I don't even remember her being like the most like look at me type person, but like moon conjoining Venus is very pop star, very glamour, very like look at me and just receiving all of the attention in the spotlight. And there's this fun nature to it. Like the moon conjoining Venus is like, this is what I want. Like I want to be seen. I want to be witnessed. I want to be, like kind of fed grapes on a pedestal almost. Like everyone's got a fantasy of being like a king or a queen or some position. And again, I say king and queen because it's like, no one wants to really want to be like a politician. Like everyone wants power, but like that's a boring job. Like just being like, hey, I'm the king and I'm the best. That's a little bit different. And I just think that moon conjoining Venus is so like wanting that and enjoying it and just being like, how do I want to be seen? And our emotions being really attached. I mean, this is also the moon too. Like the moon is a luminary. And so we're shining a light on this Venus and Leo. And so we're just kind of, not deliberating, but like examining that part more. But the two other big events that we have going on Wednesday is the sun's going into Cancer. So we have the summer solstice. So we're finally in summer. This is the peak of daytime. From here on out, it's going to get darker and darker. But the sun's in Cancer. And I've talked about this before. Some of you may be new to the channel, so you maybe haven't heard me talk about it. But there's some ancient lines of thinking that say the sun also rules Cancer, which makes sense because, again, the sun is at its brightest. Like there's more daytime right now than there is nighttime. And so the sun in Cancer, too, is like you can go outside at nighttime and it's just like it's warm and everything here's got flowers growing on it. And these trees that are here in Denver, they're everywhere. They have these like beautiful yellow blossoms on them. There's just something like enriching about the summer. And maybe just because we're animals and we're human beings and, we can be outside and we can play and we can feel, like it's Cancer season. Like we're supposed to go travel and go see our families and reconnect with people after a long, hard winter. And so I think the sun just being our willpower and our energy going into Cancer, it's like feeling like nourished and protected. And of course we could talk about like the sun in Cancer, we're feeling more emotional or sensitive, but like, are we? The sun's going to be making a trine to Saturn and Pisces. Like this is not like oh my God, I'm so emotional. It's like sometimes having a deeply emotional like experience is so enriching. You know what I mean? Like really letting something be emotional, but for a good reason. Like, you know, I've talked a lot about my dad passing away, and it's crazy after you have like a parent pass away, how much you like enjoyed those, even those smallest moments. Like I went to Cold Stone not that long ago, and I just saw like this daughter and this dad, and I was just like, you have no fucking idea how lucky you are. Like you'll enjoy this moment, and you don't even know it. And that's how I think of like the sun in Cancer is just like really enriching our emotions, and like that might heighten our energy more. Like if you just haven't had an enriched relationship or an enriched like loving situation, like when you do, it like gives you more vitality in life. And on Wednesday, Mercury is going to make a sextile to Mars. So we are sharp with our tongues. This is very sharp with our tongues. Wednesday is an interesting day for someone to pick a fight with you, or you to pick a fight with someone else, because you guys are going to be going back and forth saying it's going to, like, Mercury's in Gemini. We're communicating very clear. Mars is in Leo. Like, we're not going to back down from a fight. We're not going to let someone, stomp all over us. A lot of courageousness, a lot of just like saying shit how it is. So I really like just being sharp with our tongue, sharp with our mind, being able to connect our mind and our actions together on Wednesday. This is a really cool week, guys. Like, it's really this week. And I've been saying this for a while. It's like we've been in this buildup, and this is the week that it's like this comes into place, this comes into place, this comes into place. And then it's just a matter of time until we get to July and all of those shifts take place, where like the ball is now rolling for the summer. And the summer is really where all of the major transits hit. So then we get to Thursday. The moon is then going to conjoin Mars and make a square to Uranus. So we're going to feel a little frustrated. Not everything's going to go your way. Like when you are a performer on a stage and you're thinking, oh my gosh, like here I am, I want everything to be perfect. The moon conjoining Mars is like your microphone might get cut out. Well, the moon conjoining Mars and then squaring Uranus is kind of like, maybe the lights like are too hot for you. Like all that attention is too hot. So you're getting uncomfortable. And then as the moon squares Uranus, it's like, one of the lights breaks because they're too hot, or your mic gets cut out. Like when you're on stage, so many things can go wrong, and you kind of just have to roll with it. Like this is why like improv is so important. And like it's the same thing as like it doesn't really matter what you do for a living. If you take some sort of class on public speaking or even acting and improv, like you will just see how many areas of your life that it will help. And I look at the moon conjoining Mars and squaring Uranus as like if you have to have the absolute best case scenario every single time you go on stage, you are going to hate your life. Accidents are going to happen. Things aren't going to go your way. And you kind of have to roll with the punches and have fun with it anyway. So as the moon conjoins Mars, there is going to be some frustration. There is going to be some anger. You might get in a conflict with someone. You might get in some sort of fight, and it's all moon, Mars, and Leo. Like, but this is what I want. And the other person's like, but I want this. And then it's going to square Uranus, where it just throws instability everywhere. And you just have to try your best to roll with the punches here. You have to try your best to not let your ego get hurt. You have to be like integral too. Like something I love about like Leo stuff is everyone's like, oh, it's very egotistical and in the spotlight. But like a lot of it has to do with integrity. Like a lot of it has to do with being authentic and being real. Because like when you're on stage and you're on the spotlight, like everyone can see you and everyone's going to see what they want to see. But like it's up to you about like, if you're a performer, did you put your heart and soul into that performance, or did you half-ass it? Like, were you real about about your engagement with the audience, or were you just being like, this isn't good enough, so I'm not going to try? Like, you got to be real. And so there's going to be a frustrating part of that on what is this, on Thursday, and things aren't going to go according to plan. But as long as you're integral to like, hey, I did my best, I did what I knew how to with the tools that I had at the moment, and like all I can do is learn from the situation, I think Thursday will be a lot easier. Then on Friday, the moon is then going to ingress into Virgo. It's going to make an opposition to Saturn, and then it's going to trine Jupiter. Kind of frustrating. What I find interesting is now that Jupiter has sextiled Saturn, and Jupiter is now moving away from Saturn, when we get these moon and Virgo ingresses, the moon's going to hit Saturn first, then Jupiter. So as the moon's in Virgo again, we're wanting to be analytical, be detailed, be organized, clean things. And again, this is a waxing moon. So it's like, hey, I want to get all of this stuff together and ready for this full moon. I want to prepare all of this. I want to organize all of this. And as the moon goes opposite Saturn, again, Saturn is now retrograde, where we already understand like all of the hard, like as Saturn was direct, we were learning about responsibility and restrictions in a new area. And as Saturn's going retrograde now, it's like time to apply those lessons. Moon in Virgo going opposite Saturn is like, okay, I know that I can't overthink this. I know that I can't control every situation. Like Virgos are like, if I just pay attention to every single number and crunch the data, like then I'll know everything. And it's like, that's not how it works. The moon going opposite Saturn is like understanding, hey, I can organize this, but there's still a lot of unknown. And you don't want to resist that. Like the moon opposite Saturn, it's like, it doesn't matter how much data you get from the universe. You're probably not going to find God. Does that make sense? Like it doesn't matter how many, little billion tiny Earths that are around the universe that we could possibly live on. It's like, we're not going to get there. It's not going to happen. So like, what's the point? Like, do what you can with what you have in front of you, and don't worry about the big stuff that you can't answer and that you can't fix right now. So there is this frustration level with like just wanting to know the full answers and trying to get, like, if you just get everything organized and detailed and get all of the analytics, then you'll know the answer, and you just won't. But the information that you do receive can be helpful. Then after the moon goes opposite Saturn, it's going to then trine Jupiter, where it's like, hey, I've got this information. What can I do with it now? Like, okay, maybe I can't have all of my answers that I want right now, but what can I make good right now? As that moon's trining Jupiter, there's this level of like, hey, if I just plant, for example, it's the same thing with like growing plants. Like I talked, I think a couple weeks ago about, like, I saw like a TikTok about like, here's me, like I'm growing this garden and I have all of these sensors to know exactly how much moisture is in it and blah, 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 blah. It's like, stop. Like the moon in Virgo opposite Saturn is like, you can put all these data sensors and all this stuff, but like it's meaningless. It's meaningless. The moon trining Jupiter is like, hey, if you just know how to plant your seeds and you put them in the right way, as it trines Jupiter, they will grow, and you have to trust that. And while you may not know when exactly they're going to blossom, or if there's going to be some sort of bug that's going to kill your plants, or how much water moisture that the dirt has in the soil, and how many minerals does it have, and is it full of calcium or not, you're just not going to know that, and that's okay. As the moon trines Jupiter, you just have to know what to do. You have to actually apply what you know that you can do. Like if you can't do it, don't worry about it. Do what you can do and just trust that process. Like it's so funny right now in society how like everyone's like, oh, I wish I could do this, but I don't have X or I don't have Y. And that's not true. Like people have done exactly what you want to do with way less than what you have, and they made it work. You got to understand that if you want something to work and you don't have the things that you think you need to make that thing work, you got to understand you don't need those things. You can use whatever you have right now to do what it is that you have to do. Like I started my fucking YouTube channel with just my phone. And I went out into the desert and I didn't have Wi-Fi. I had a horrible computer. It would take me like 2 hours to write the horoscope because of the shitty computer and then the Starbucks Wi-Fi. Then I have to drive somewhere, take the video. Audio is horrible. Video is horrible. Then drive back to Starbucks. And it would take me like 4 to 6 hours to upload a video. So this was like an all-day event just doing this, versus now it's like I'm done in a couple hours. So use what you have right now and don't worry about what you don't. We get into Saturday, and as the moon's in Virgo, it's just going to be trining Uranus. So again, I think as you, like, what's so nice about not having the things that you think that you need is you get to be inventive. Like you get to reduce, reuse, recycle. Like that's something I love of like I have Jupiter in Capricorn. So I love being like cheap or like finding a good deal. And I love being like, well, can I use something else to apply it here? Or what tools do I have? And how can I be creative? How can I be inventive? Like that's what's so fun about Saturn being exalted in Libra, for example. Like Libra is about like arts, right? Venus stuff is about arts. Saturn's about restrictions, and like all of art is like being like you have to create something, but with these restrictions or with these limitations. And so it's like you have these limitations set about you for whatever project it is that you have to do. This is the time to get creative. And this is where your creative mind can really work. Because if you have all of the resources and all of the help possible, it's like, well, then what do I do? Like I could do really anything. Versus if you only have so much, you get to get creative and really think about what options you do have. And that moon shining Uranus is like light bulb moment. Hey, I've got this, I've got this, I've got that. Oh, I can use this for this. And maybe that can help change something up that you needed to change. It's like, for example, maybe you want a drip system for your garden, but you can't afford a drip hose. Maybe you go into your backyard or you go to a yard sale and there's some broken hose with a hole in it. And you go, oh, I can just poke holes in this one and create a drip just like that. Like, the moon trining Uranus in Virgo is like so inventive when it comes to like just utilizing the resources that you have. As long as you just like as long as you take inventory of what you have, you'll be able to figure out how you can creatively use the other things that maybe are not in use in other areas. So I really like Saturday for just being inventive and creative and getting things figured out. Then we get to Sunday, and on Sunday, the moon is going to make a square to Mercury, and then it's going to go opposite Neptune, and then it's going to ingress into Libra. So Mercury's at like the last degrees right now of Gemini, And that moon in Virgo squaring Mercury in Gemini is like Mercury in Gemini and moon in Virgo are like two friends debating on like Mercury and Gemini is like, well, this is what I heard. And moon and Virgo is like, well, this is what the fact checkers say. And so there's this kind of like cognitive dissonance between the two. Because like one's like, well, this is what I understand. And the other one's like, well, this is what the data says. And there's going to be this like level of like things just not clicking and feeling frustrated. And the moon's going to go opposite Neptune where, you know, maybe you have all of these. This is what's so funny about like data is like, it's all about the right data, right? So you can have all this data and then someone tells you something else and it makes you look at the data that you have like, whoa, well, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know this meant anything. Because the moon will square Mercury and it's like someone tells you, hey, oh, maybe you're doing that wrong. Or, you know, I did something different and I got a different result. Or I tried that and it didn't work. And the moon going in Virgo opposite Neptune is like, well, what do I do now? And this is so confusing. And it's just going to be a little bit overwhelming. Because the other thing that happens is Mercury is going to be squaring Neptune. The problem with Mercury squaring Neptune is like, have you ever talked to someone and they just kind of say something out loud? Not that big of a deal, but it just makes you go into a spiral of like, what does that mean? What do they mean by that? Where did that information come from? Like, it just doesn't make sense. The moon making a square to Mercury while the moon's opposite Neptune and Mercury making a square to Neptune. It's just like something is going to be told or something's going to be communicated that throws you in for a loop that makes everything really confusing. And so just don't let yourself spiral about it. Pretty much just be like, okay, that's interesting information. We can pick this up. We could set this down for now and pick it back up later. Because the moon will then go into Libra, whereas the moon's in Libra, it's much more about being like, all right, well, let's just focus on relationships. Let's just focus on balance. I don't need to, for example, if you're just like work, like organizing. Moon in Libra is like, I need to take a break for a second. Maybe I need to take a shower. Maybe I need to clean something up. Maybe I just need to relax and scroll for a minute, if that makes sense. But the other thing that we have going on Sunday, now here's the kicker. So this happens on both Sunday and Monday. So I'm going to talk about this next week, but Mars will square Uranus. Here's the deal. It is explosive. It is exaggerated. Like Mars and Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus is very like, well, if I can't have fun, you can't have fun either. It reminds me of, there's an old YouTube video about like some kid who's like a video game nerd. And there's like a Thanksgiving dinner with his family. And his family's like, can you stop being such an asshole? Like you're being so mean to everybody. And this kid just loses it and flips the Thanksgiving dinner table on everyone and just totally ruins Thanksgiving. That's Mars and Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus. In fact, that's really good for that. So if you don't like Mars squaring Uranus is like our ego, our pride in the midst, in the heat of the moment, in the heat of passion, might pop shit off. Maybe that's needed. Maybe you do need to pop off. If you do, be really careful about how much you fuck up because there's not a lot of coming back from it. However, if you don't absolutely need to pop off, really do your best to like Mars squaring Uranus is like sometimes, like for example, you're late for work, you got to go somewhere, you're rushing, and then someone T-bones your car. You can scream, you can yell, you can get all mad, and trust me, that's what I do, so I'm not perfect. But there's a level of just like, okay, this happened, and here we are. There's no need to worry about it anymore. So Mars squaring Uranus is like something is going to happen that is catastrophic, that is very unstable, that is very just like something breaking and exploding and totally fucking up everything. And you just got to learn to be okay with it. Like, unless you can absolutely control the situation, but control is an illusion. You just have to let it be and not let it overwhelm you. But if you're the Mars and Leo person being like, I'm not, you know, like the kid being like, I think it was something like his video games got taken. He's like, my video games got taken. You guys are all mean. I'm going to ruin everything for everyone else. You don't want to be that guy because that does not make, like, you might have felt good in that moment, but then the second you're done, you go, oh God, I was a fucking asshole. And then you might lie to yourself like, they deserved it. And, you know, they all hate me and blah, blah, blah. That's not real. Like, just because everyone deserves it doesn't mean you have to like take that L and be the bad guy. And that's not being in integrity. It's like, there's a difference of being integrity and there's a difference between that and like just having your pride and your ego hurt to where you just like rambunctiously act out. So that's Sunday. And then as we get into next week is huge. Like it's this week and next week where all the big things are happening. Next week, we're going to have Mercury square Uranus. We're going to have Mercury ingress into Cancer. We're going to have Mercury trine Saturn. We're going to have Mercury sextile Jupiter. We're going to have Venus square Uranus, which is like Venus square Uranus is like, I'm going to try something new with my hair. Like girls, like they always like to be like, I'm going to try bangs. And then they get bangs and it doesn't look the way they thought. And then we're going to have the full moon in Capricorn. So there's so much happening next week. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the updates for the current astrological weather as well. Again, over on my website, you can get notifications for all the transits that are hitting your personal birth chart. Again, when you buy the product, you are going to be putting in your birth information. So this is directly related to you and your birth chart. As well, comment below. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are. If you want to support the channel as well, I have a Patreon. I do monthly rising sign horoscopes, live streams for Ask Me Anythings, monthly overviews, and there's like a Discord channel that's very active. Go ahead and go there if you want to support me. And with that being said, I love and appreciate you guys, and I'll be seeing you next week.